No, don't. But he did. His lips found hers, sudden, fierce, trembling. The kind of kiss that makes your knees forget how to stand. The kind that burns through all the rules you swore you'd keep. Her hands hovered between pushing him away and pulling him closer. The world outside their window blurred, the neon lights of Seoul dripping across the glass like melting stars. Rain tapped against the panes, keeping rhythm with their hearts. Baby, the word escaped before she could stop it. It wasn't planned. It wasn't thought. It just was. And in that instant, everything froze. Junho's breath caught, not from the kiss, but from the sound of it. That word, baby. It was soft. It was trembling. It was forbidden. He pulled back, eyes dark, lips parted as if the world had just tilted off its axis. She blinked, chest heaving, hands shaking. I didn't mean. But he wasn't angry. He wasn't even breathing right. His voice came out low, rough, alive in a way she had never heard. Say it again. Her heart pounded so loud it drowned the thunder outside. I can't, she whispered. Say it, he said again. And when she did, softer this time, fragile as prayer. Baby. Something in him broke open. The man who never laughed, never stumbled, never lost control, now trembling before the woman who cleaned his kitchen. That word had undone him. That word had undone everything. Hello, family. Before we go further, please take a second to subscribe. Your support is what keeps stories like this alive. So go ahead, and tell us where you're watching from. Now, let's go back to where it all began. The morning rain had not yet stopped when it happened, the first time she called him baby. Amaka Obi was standing in Park International Tower, 12th floor, top suite, the private penthouse of Junho Park, Seoul's most private billionaire. The scent of roasted beans filled the kitchen. She had pressed his navy blue suit, laid out the gold-plated cufflinks, and polished the counter until it gleamed like a mirror. Her phone buzzed. The intercom light blinked red. She pressed the receiver. Good morning, sir. Amaka, his voice came through, calm, clipped, controlled. Did you print the quarterly report I asked for? Her mind was split between the sound of his voice and a text message from Nigeria, her brother, Chuka, asking again about overdue tuition. Yes, it's already printed, B.A. She froze mid-syllable. The word rolled out before she could stop it. Baby. Silence. A silence that felt heavier than thunder. Her hand trembled around the phone. Oh my God, sir, I meant. See you in the study. 8 sharp. Then the line went dead. She stood there for a full minute, staring at the intercom like it had betrayed her. Rain whispered against the window, the smell of coffee filling the space she could no longer breathe in. He didn't call back. He didn't text. But when she saw him that evening, standing by the window in that same navy blue suit, his expression unreadable, she felt the air shift. Not anger. Not yet. Something else. He turned, slow and deliberate, his tone cool as ever. You called me baby this morning. I did, sir. It was a mistake. I'm sorry. He stepped closer, eyes steady, unreadable. I don't believe in mistakes, he said. Then, after a long pause, I'll see you in Jeju next week. You'll be joining the household staff. Her heart jumped. Jeju. That wasn't normal protocol. He didn't take staff on private trips. And yet, when he looked at her, she saw something flicker, curiosity, or maybe confusion, the same kind that had lingered after the kiss we saw at the beginning of this story. That word, baby, had already begun to rewrite everything. Rain gave way to sunlight the next morning, but the tension didn't fade with it. The air inside Park International Tower was different now, softer in some corners, heavier in others. Every time Amaka crossed the marble hallway, she could feel his presence before she even saw him. It wasn't fear. It wasn't admiration either. It was awareness. Pure, undeniable awareness. She told herself it meant nothing. She was just his maid, and he was just her boss. But the way his eyes followed her, careful, quiet, unreadable, said otherwise. He wasn't supposed to notice the scent of her fabric softener. He wasn't supposed to notice how her song faded down the hall each morning, a low hum of Yoruba mixed with sorrow. But he did. He noticed everything. And once you start noticing someone, you can't unnotice them. He told himself the same thing he told the board of directors every Monday morning. Control is everything. But control is a fragile thing when someone unexpected enters your life. Especially someone who calls you baby by mistake and makes your heart remember it. That Friday, something changed again. Amaka was setting the dining table when he walked in without his usual armor. No tie, no jacket, just shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow and a half smile that didn't quite belong on his face. He was holding 2 mugs. "Vanilla latte," he said. "Extra cinnamon. That's what you like, right?" She blinked. "Sir, how did you?" "You mentioned it once," he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard. "I remember." The words lingered between them, small and simple but heavy with meaning. For the first time, she saw the man behind the money, behind the cold voice and sharp suits, someone lonely, tired, maybe even human. She smiled, shy and careful. "Thank you, sir." He nodded, but his eyes stayed on her longer than they should have. Long enough for her to look away first. The next week, he invited her to Jeju Island. Officially, she was going as part of the household team. Unofficially, no one else went. The villa overlooked the sea, quiet and glass-walled, the kind of place that swallowed secrets whole. When they arrived, rain started again, thin, misty rain that blurred the view of the horizon. She unpacked his clothes, made coffee, and tried to disappear into her duties. But the silence between them was too alive. That night, a booking mistake left them sharing one 2-bedroom villa. Separate rooms, yes, but the air didn't know that. The air carried their unspoken thoughts back and forth like waves. They ate instant ramen at the counter, the kind you stir with chopsticks and slurp too fast. He asked about her life in Nigeria, about her family. She told him about Lagos, the crowded streets, the sound of generators at night, her little brother Chika who wanted to be an engineer. He listened, really listened. Then she asked, "And you, sir? What makes you happy?" He didn't answer at first. Then quietly, "I don't know anymore." For a long time, they just sat there. Steam rose from their bowls, the rain whispered against the glass, and for the first time, they looked at each other as equals. Later that night, when the lights dimmed, she stood by the balcony railing, watching the sea crash against black rocks below. Her hair whipped in the wind, her thin robe fluttering around her legs. Behind her, a door opened. Footsteps. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. "I can't sleep," he said softly. She laughed once, a small, nervous sound. "Maybe it's the rain." "Maybe it's something else," he said. When she finally turned, his expression was unreadable again, half battle, half surrender. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Just the sound of waves and breathing and silence thick enough to feel. Then he said, "Amaka," and that was enough. Because when someone says your name like that, soft, careful, almost breaking, it means they are already too far gone. But no one crossed the line that night. Not yet. Because sometimes what's unsaid is louder than words. Sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the kiss, it's the waiting for it. She went to bed hearing the sound of rain. He went to bed remembering her voice. And somewhere in the space between them, love began to form, slow, patient, unstoppable. If you're still here, family, thank you. Before you go, please subscribe. Every story shared, every voice heard, keeps hope alive for women who are learning to love and be loved again. Tell us where you're watching from. The quiet didn't last. Peace never lasts when the heart starts to feel too much. It began with whispers, soft, poisonous things that moved faster than the truth ever could. The staff began to notice the glances, the extra coffee cup on the counter, the faint smell of vanilla that clung to him after she left the room. And like all whispers, it grew teeth. One morning, Hyjin Kang, the head housekeeper, cornered him in the hallway. Her tone was respectful, but her words sharp enough to draw blood. "Sir," she said carefully, "people are talking. About you. About her." Junho's jaw tightened. "About what exactly?" "About things that shouldn't be said. Please, she's a good woman. Don't let gossip destroy her." He froze. He didn't like being told what to do. But the phrase good woman hit something inside him, something buried, something tender. When Hyjin left, the silence that followed felt heavier than thunder. That night, he stayed in his office long after everyone else had gone. He replayed Amaka's laughter, her voice, the way she said his name like it meant something. And then, because he was afraid of what he felt, he did what men like him do best. He built walls. The next morning, he was cold again. He gave orders without looking at her. He spoke only in clipped tones. He didn't even thank her when she brought his coffee. And Amaka noticed every single thing. The distance. The silence. The way his eyes refused to meet hers. At first, she told herself it was fine. She could handle indifference. But indifference is just another word for heartbreak in slow motion. Days turned into weeks. She hummed less. She smiled less. Every moment between them felt like glass, transparent, sharp, breakable. Until one evening, she couldn't take it anymore. The clock struck 10. The rain had started again. It always seemed to rain when their story broke open. Amaka walked into his study, her heart pounding loud enough to hear. He looked up, startled. "Amaka, what are you?" "What did I do?" she cut in, her voice trembling but fierce. "Tell me, Mr. Park. Tell me what I did wrong so I can fix it." He stood behind his desk, eyes cold, but she could see the storm beneath the surface. "You did nothing wrong," he said. "Then why do you treat me like I don't exist?" He hesitated, then his voice hardened. "Because you're my maid. Nothing more." The words landed like a slap. She flinched. For a second, the world stopped spinning. Her throat burned, but she refused to let tears fall in front of him. "Thank you," she said quietly. Then she reached into her pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and placed it on his desk. "My resignation." He stared at it. "You're quitting." "I'm leaving," she said. "There's a difference." She turned and walked out before he could see the tears. That night, Seoul was drowning in rain. He sat in his car for hours, watching the water slide down the windshield, trying to breathe. He told himself to let her go. He told himself it was for the best. But the silence inside him was unbearable. At midnight, he drove. No destination, just the city lights and the rain guiding him. Until he found himself in Itaewon, outside a narrow apartment building. Her apartment. He stood in the doorway, drenched, his heart hammering in his chest. When she opened the door, she looked smaller than he remembered, her hair loose, her eyes red from crying. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "But you are," he said, voice shaking. "And I can't pretend anymore." She didn't move, didn't speak. "They said I'd ruin you if I cared," he said, taking a step closer. "But not caring is worse." He looked at her like a man surrendering to gravity. "I'm in love with you." Her breath caught. The anger, the hurt, the walls, all of it melted into something fragile and trembling. He took one more step. "Tell me to leave," he whispered, "and I'll go." But she didn't. She looked up, eyes glistening, and that was all the answer he needed. He lifted a hand, brushing a wet curl from her cheek. Then his lips found hers, rain-cold, hesitant, searching. The kiss started like a question and ended like an answer. A promise whispered between heartbeats. When they finally broke apart, she rested her head against his chest. Outside, thunder rolled across the Han River, but inside that tiny apartment, the storm had ended. Hello, family. If this story touched you, please subscribe. Your support helps us keep love stories alive, stories that remind us that courage sometimes sounds like 3 simple words. I love you. Tell us where you're watching from. Morning light slid through the curtains like quiet forgiveness. The night before still lingered in the air, soft, trembling, unforgettable. Amaka woke to the sound of rain tapping the glass again, only this time, it sounded different. Gentler, like the sky had decided to whisper instead of shout. Junho was still asleep beside her on the couch, his head tilted back, the faintest trace of peace on his face. For once, he didn't look like the man who owned half of Seoul. He looked human. He looked hers. She didn't move. She just watched him breathe, one steady rise and fall after another. And for a fleeting moment, she let herself believe this was what forever could look like. But forever, she knew, was a fragile thing. Especially when built on secrets. Over the next few weeks, their love became a quiet secret, hidden in routines, folded into silence. She still cooked, still cleaned, still greeted him as sir when the staff were around. But behind closed doors, she called him baby. And each time she did, he smiled like a man who had finally found home. Their moments were small but full, a shared breakfast before dawn, a walk by the Han River with hats pulled low, late-night calls when he was working late at the office. Theirs was not a perfect love, but it was real, and real was enough. Junho even started calling Nigeria once a week. He spoke with Chika, Amaka's younger brother, about school and dreams and the future. One evening, he said on video call, "Tell your sister she doesn't need to worry anymore. Your tuition is handled." And for the first time in years, Amaka cried out of gratitude, not fear. Even his mother, Madam Unemai Park, noticed the change. "You smile more lately," she said one afternoon, raising an eyebrow. He tried to hide it, but she saw right through him. "You've met someone, haven't you?" He didn't answer. But his silence was answer enough. For a little while, it felt like the world had finally stopped fighting them. But peace never stays long in stories like this. It came one afternoon, an email. Short. Unexpected. Subject line, "We need to talk." The sender's name stopped him cold. Sora Minute. His ex-fiancée. The woman who had walked away 5 years ago without goodbye. He read the first line aloud, voice low. "It's about something I should have told you years ago." Amaka was sitting across the table. She met his eyes, calm, steady, unafraid. "Go," she said quietly. "Secrets only grow in silence." Her voice didn't tremble, but her hands did. Because love built on truth is strong, but love tested by ghosts is stronger still. They met at a cafe in Gangnam. Sora looked the same, elegant, controlled, but thinner, like life had been unkind. Her fingers trembled as she stirred her coffee. When she finally spoke, her voice broke on the first word. "I was pregnant when I left," she said. Junho froze. Every sound in the cafe, the clink of spoons, the hum of conversation, blurred into nothing. "She's 4 now," Sora continued, sliding an envelope across the table. "Her name is Yuna. She has your eyes." Inside were photographs, a small girl with round cheeks and dark hair, laughing beside a park swing. For a long time, he said nothing. Then quietly, "Why tell me now?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because I'm dying. Stage 4. There's no more time to hide the truth." When he returned home that night, his hands were shaking. Amaka was waiting, sitting by the window with tea she'd made hours ago. He sat beside her and handed her the envelope. "This changes everything," he whispered. She opened it, her eyes moving over the photos slowly, carefully. A little girl smiling, innocent, unaware that her life had just collided with theirs. When she finally looked up, her voice was soft but unshaken. "Then we face everything together." And that was it. No jealousy. No questions. Just love, strong enough to carry both the past and the future. He broke down then, for the first time. All the walls, all the armor, all the silence, gone. And she held him. No words, no explanations. Just the warmth of two souls refusing to let life win. The next morning, she called Chika in Lagos. "Pray for me," she said with a smile in her voice. "Why?" he asked. "Because life's about to get a lot more complicated, and a lot more beautiful." That evening, Junho kissed her forehead. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For staying." Outside, the sky over Seoul turned from gold to violet, and somewhere in Gangnam, a little girl was falling asleep clutching a stuffed dinosaur. 2 lives were about to become 3. And love, real love, was about to be rewritten. The cherry blossoms came early that spring. They lined the river like soft pink clouds, fluttering down into the water where the world looked kinder. It was under those blossoms that everything changed again, not with thunder, but with laughter. A small voice called out, "Appa." Junho turned at the sound. Yuna was running toward him, her hair in twin pigtails, her tiny hand clutching a toy dinosaur. He knelt down to meet her, his throat tightening. Up close, she was real, more real than any photograph could ever be. Her smile, her eyes, even the tiny wrinkle in her nose when she giggled. "Mommy says you're smart," Yuna said, her Korean words careful but bright. "I like you." He laughed softly, tears already gathering. "I like you too, Yuna." Behind them, Amaka stood watching, the wind catching her curls, sunlight spilling across her dark skin like honey. For the first time in a long time, Seoul didn't feel cold. It felt like home. From that day, the 3 of them began learning each other's rhythm. Mornings filled with cereal and laughter. Evenings filled with lessons and lullabies. Amaka taught Yuna English words and soft Yoruba songs. Junho taught her how to count the stars and pronounce her name in both languages. Yone, Yune, child of grace. Sora's illness worsened quickly. Her strength faded like a candle burning at both ends. But she smiled every time Yuna told her about the nice lady who makes pancakes or Appa who reads stories with funny voices. One evening, as the sky turned crimson, Sora took Amaka's hands in hers. "Thank you," she whispered. Amaka shook her head, tears streaming. "You don't have to thank me." "I do," Sora said softly. "Because you love her already. And that means she'll never be alone." When Sora passed away a week later, the world went quiet. Even the city seemed to pause, traffic slower, voices lower, the rain gentler. Junho held Yuna in his arms, her small fingers tangled in his shirt, her sobs soft but endless. Amaka stood beside them, steady and strong. Grief didn't break them, it bound them. Weeks passed, and life found new shapes. Yuna filled the penthouse with color, drawings taped to glass walls, tiny shoes left by the door, laughter echoing through marble halls that once knew only silence. Amaka's touch turned the space from luxury to warmth. And Junho learned something money had never taught him: peace. One morning, Amaka was folding linen near the window. Yuna was at the dining table coloring, humming a Yoruba tune her mother had taught her. The air smelled of coffee and cherry blossoms. Junho walked in quietly, carrying something behind his back. He stopped, just looking at them, two lives that had become his reason to breathe. Then he knelt. Amaka turned, surprised. "What are you doing?" He smiled. "Something I should have done a long time ago." He opened the small velvet box. Inside, a simple gold ring caught the morning light. "You called me baby once," he said softly, voice trembling. "It was an accident that gave me everything: hope, love, and family." He took her hand. "Amaka Obi, will you marry me?" She stared at him, this man who had once been all steel and silence, now bare, human, undone. Her laugh broke through the tears. "Yes, Junho. 1,000 times yes." Yuna squealed, jumping from her chair. "Mommy and Daddy are married." And just like that, laughter replaced sorrow. A few months later, they stood on a terrace overlooking the Han River. The city glittered below like 1,000 promises kept. Amaka wore a simple white dress that moved like water when she walked. Yuna scattered petals down the aisle, her giggles ringing louder than the soft piano playing. As Junho slipped the ring on Amaka's finger, a breeze lifted her veil, carrying the scent of blossoms and rain. They looked at each other and smiled, not the smile of new love, but of love that had survived everything. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," he didn't wait. He pulled her close, kissed her the way he had that first night, soft, trembling, alive. Only this time, there was no mistake, no fear. Just truth. That night, as the city lights shimmered below their balcony, Yuna fell asleep between them. Amaka traced a hand along Junho's cheek and whispered, "Do you ever think about how it all started?" He smiled, eyes closed. "Every day." "The word that changed everything," she teased. He laughed quietly. "Yes, the word that made me yours." She leaned in, lips brushing his ear. "Baby." He laughed again, pulling her closer. "Say it again." And she did. Outside, the Han River flowed steady and endless, just like the love they'd built, a love born of accident, healed by truth, and made eternal by choice.